Hello everyone, I welcome you all to the 8th online lecture of the course Experimental Methods in Thermal Engineering. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about the normal distribution and we have also tried to see the Chauvenet criteria for removing any bad data point from our data set. Okay, we'll now continue further our discussion on analysis of experimental data, and in this particular lecture, we will further try to see some of the formats for representing our experimental data. Okay, so before that, let us first try to see one more additional test which checks the goodness of a fit. So the test which tells us whether our fit is good enough to the expected fit or not, that particular type of test is known as chi-square test. So in this test, what we do, we calculate one value which is known as chi-square, and chi-square is nothing but it represents the summation over the entire data set, and inside we are having first observed value. So whatever value we are actually expecting, we are obtaining from the experimental data set minus whatever expected value we are having. Okay, so minus expected value and square root of that divided by expected value. Okay, so this particular term is something which is known as a chi-square value. Okay, now depending upon the value of chi-square and numbers of available degrees of freedom, we calculate the probability, and the probability value tells us whether our data set is having good fit or not. Okay, so then first is chi-square value. Then another important point I have mentioned over here, F, which is called as the degree of freedom. Okay, this degree of freedom is nothing but equal to small n minus k, where small n represents the number of cells in our sample. Okay, number of cells in our sample, and K represents the number of constraints we are having on our sample. So K is nothing but number of constraints, and the number of cells per sample minus number of constraints represents the degree of freedom of that sample. Now, depending upon the value of chi-square and value of degree of freedom, we calculate the probability of occurrence, and for that already we are having some table available. So here you can see in this table, in this particular direction, we are having the different values of F, and over here we are having this data set as different values of chi-square, and these particular values of chi-square are corresponding to different probabilities. Okay, so now depending upon or after obtaining the value of chi-square and number of degrees of freedom, we can calculate the value of probability for any data set. Now you can see over here in the formulation of chi-square, we are having the difference of expected value and observed value. So that's why it will be telling us that how close our observed experimental data is to the expected data. Okay. So here, whatever the tabular data we are having, that tabular data is nothing but represented in the graphical form. So over here you can see F is along abscissa and value of chi-square is along ordinate. And in this plot we are having different lines. These different lines represents the constant. These are nothing but the constant probability lines. And this particular first one is corresponding to 0.005, then 0.01. So like that we are having each line is representing some probability value. So this is nothing but whatever the tabular data we are I have shown you in the previous slide, that tabular data is represented in the graphical form. Okay, now let us try to see how we apply this chi-square test for finding out the goodness of any fit. So let us consider we are having one example, and this example is particularly taken from cup manufacturing. So say we are getting certain defects in the cups in a manufacturing unit of cups. Say these defects are categorized into 8 different cells. So this is first, second, and corresponding to these different cells, we are having now the two different cup categories, say cup A and cup B. Now, for that category of cup A, the cups which are having defect of type 1, that number is given over here as 1, and for cup B, we are having that number as 5. Okay, and total number of samples for cup A as well as for cup B type are actually restricted to maximum number of 100 samples. Okay, so now if we consider that this is nothing but whatever we are having this particular data set, let us consider that this is our expected data. Okay, and let us consider that B data set is nothing but our observed data. Now what we have to do, we have to apply over here chi-square test, and we have to identify whether our expected data set is matching to the observed data set or not. So what we have to do, first we have to find out the value of chi-square and value of f. So now while we calculate the value of f, what we do, we consider it as n minus k, where n nothing but represents the number of cells in our sample. So here you can see this entire is our sample, which consists of 100 number of cups. Now this sample is nothing but categorized into 8 different cells. So over here my value of this n is nothing but equal to 8, minus k represents the number of constraints. So over here the only one constraint is that the total number of cups in a sample is 100. So that's why 1 is our constraint. So from here we are getting the value of f as nothing but equal to 7. But one thing, if you see, particularly for the defects of type 1, the cups number of cups in category A are 1, for 2 there are 2, and for 3 there are 3. Similarly for B also we are having 5, 3, 3. Okay. So now one important point I would like to highlight over here, while we are applying this chi-square test, we have to always ensure that the number of samples inside a single cell should be greater than 5. Okay, but particularly if you refer to that defects type 1, 2 and 3, you will be finding that the number of cups are nothing but less than 5. So what we will be doing for our analysis, all these three categories 1, 2 and 3, we will be combining into a single category. So all these three nothing but we are considering as a single type of defect. So if we consider this, then in category for cup A, we will be having nothing but 6 as the cumulative number of cups, and for this we will be having 11 as the cumulative number of cups. Okay, so why we have done this? Because as per this analysis, if we have to perform, we have to ensure that in each cell we are having at least 5 numbers. If numbers are less than 5, then we have to redistribute our data. So for that, what we have done, actually we have combined the number of defects of 1, 2 and 3 in order to ensure that in each cell we are having at least 5 sample points. Okay, so that's why what will be happening now, instead of 8, now we will be having only 6 number of cells, because these 3 we have combined into a single cell. So our new degrees of freedom will be nothing but 6 minus 1. Okay, so that is nothing but equal to 5. So 5 is now our new degree of freedom, and while we will be calculating the value of chi-square, we know that chi-square is nothing but observed value minus expected. So cup A type we have considered as our expected, and cup B we have considered as our observed distribution. So nothing but it will be coming, first 3 we have combined, 6 minus 11, okay, whole square, or whole square I can take outside also, plus what I'll be having then. Next I will be having, sorry, this whole square I will apply over here, plus next I am having, in fourth we are having 25 and 23. So I can write 23 minus 25 whole square, plus then we are having 12 minus 10 whole square. So something like that we will be writing for all, and then we will be having divided by nothing but sum of all expected. So sum of expected is 6 plus 25 plus 10 plus 15 plus 38 plus 6. So from here, if you calculate the value of chi-square, that will be coming out to be somewhere close to 7.143. Okay. So now corresponding to this chi-square value of 7.143 and corresponding to degrees of freedom of 5, we have to find out the probability. So now let us see this graph over here. So our value of 7 will be somewhere over here. Okay, this is my point corresponding to 7.143, and sorry, this should be number of degrees of freedom. So I am marking it wrongly. So number of degrees of freedom is over here. So this is my value of f nu, and then value of chi-square is 7.143. So 7.143 will be somewhere over here. So now if I take the intersection of these two, I am getting the value of probability somewhere over here. Okay, so this is my point over here. So you can see over here, we are having one line of probability 0.25, which is passing through this, and then one another line of 0.5. So this value, if you try to see, my representation may be wrong over here. So if you correctly represent, you will be finding that finally from this graph, we will be having probability of 0.43. Okay. So now what does this probability value represent? So you can clearly see in the formulation of chi-square, we are having nothing but observed value minus expected value. It clearly means that if our observed value is exactly identical to the actual value, in that case our chi-square will be 0. Okay, so when our chi-square value is 0, corresponding to that, what we will be finding that we are having nothing but a perfect match. Now, in terms of probability, what we do, if our value of probability is in between 0.1 to 0.9, then we consider that we are having a good match in between our expected data set and the observed data set. However, if value of probability is less than 0.1, then we will be having poor correlation in between the expected and the observed data set, and if value of probability is greater than 0.9, then we will be having the very good match. Now when our value is going to very high value, then also we should be critical in evaluating our experimental data, because it is very true that in case of experimental data we will not be getting always the very good fit. Okay, so that's why our probability value for experimental data should be in the range of 0.1 to 0.9. If it is falling below 0.1 and going above 0.9, then we should also check for different type of gross blunders in our experimental measurements, because this type of probability values are generally not expected from the experimental data. Okay. So this is one way of comparing between our expected data set and the observed data set. And from this chi-square value or probability value, we can say that whether our observed data set is matching or having good match with the expected data set or not. Okay. Now here comes the another concept of method of least square. So method of least square is particularly used to find out the correlations or to fit our observed data to certain trend. Okay, so what we do in case of methods of least squares, we define one term S, which is nothing but, from its definition, it represents the summation of difference of the values from its mean value. So I can write this S as nothing but summation I varying from 1 to n xi minus xm whole square. So what we are doing, whatever the deviation we are having from some mean value, we are considering the square of these deviations. And if we are considering the sum of all the deviations, now what we need to do, we have to select value of this xm. So xm is something I am representing it as a mean value or mean representation of that data set, and that mean value is nothing but giving us a true reflection of the expected data, or I can say true value of that sample. So now if we have to see that what should be this value of xm, so that our deviations, squares of deviations of data is actually small. So in that case, what we have to do, nothing but we have to minimize the value of s with reference to our mean value xm equal to 0. So if we perform this, what we will be finding, nothing but summation I varies from 1 to n 2 times xi minus xm into minus of 1 equal to 0. So that is nothing but this left hand side represent del s by del xm. So now from this I can clearly write that 2 times summation of xi minus xm into this minus 1 I am bringing to the right hand side. So minus xm into summation 1 when I is varying from 1 to n. So means n number of times we have to do this summation. So this is equal to 0. So from here I will be getting nothing but this 2 is also common. So this 2 will be also cancelling out, okay, when it will be going to the right hand side. So I can clearly see right over here that summation of xi is nothing but equal to xm times n. So from here I am getting value of xm is nothing but equal to summation of xi divided by n, which is nothing but our arithmetic mean. Okay, so that is nothing but the definition of arithmetic mean. So it means method of least squares is telling us that if we are defining some mean value as the true value or true representation of the data set, so if, our arithmetic mean will be actually giving us the least deviation. Okay, so now this method of least squares can be applied to fit our experimental data. So now let us consider that we are having some distribution of data x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3, so on up to xn and yn. Okay, so now if I plot this experimental data on this curve, say y is along ordinate and x is along abscissa. So say these my different points are nothing but representing the value of data whatever we are having available. Okay, so now these are nothing but our experimental observations. Okay, now what we want to do in this experimental data, we want to fit some line that represents our closeness or some trend of the experimental data between these two variables y and x. So now let us first try to fit the linear fit. If we are considering the linear variation of x and y, I can clearly write y as nothing but ax plus b. Okay, so we will be nothing but having a straight line which will be fitting our data set. So let me draw a straight line over here. So this line is nothing but it is representing, I am writing this one as y tilde in order to differentiate in between the observed value and the value which is calculated from this linear fit. So this line is nothing but representing y tilde equal to ax plus b. Okay, and so over here you can see nothing but this was our value of x1 corresponding to this x1. This one was my value of y1, and this fit has given some another value of y, which is nothing but I can write it as y1 tilde. Similarly, for this second value, this is corresponding to x2. We are having the value as y2, and value of this point obtained from the curve which we have fitted is nothing but our y2 tilde. So you can clearly see over here that while we are fitting this data using a linear fit, we are having certain difference in between the actual value whatever we have obtained from the experiment and whatever the value we are getting from the this linearly fitted line. Okay, so now what is our aim? Our aim is nothing but to define or plot this line in such a fashion so that the difference between the observed value and the value which is obtained from the fit, this difference should be smallest possible. Okay, so for that what we will be doing, once again we will be using our method of least squares. So S I will be defining as nothing but, because we are having the multiple data points, so in general form I can write S as nothing but summation of I varies from 1 to n my uh, observed data. So observed data is we are representing with y symbol minus data which we are getting from the fit. So from the fit we are getting data as y cap I. Okay, so square of this. Now this y cap I is nothing but I have just now defined using a linear fit, so I can simply write it as a times xi plus b and whole square of this one. Okay, so now you can clearly see that we are linearly fitting the line, and we have defined over here the deviations and the square of deviations, and then we have done the summation in order to define the sum of least squares. Okay, so now what we need to do, we have to minimize this value of s. So we have to select this fit whatever we are using over here, we have to select this fit in such a fashion so that we are minimizing this value of s. Okay, so for that purpose what we have to do, obviously in this expression, if you see, this is nothing but this is the expression which we have employed over here for fitting our data set. So in this expression, you can see we are having the two constant values a and b. So we have to select the values of these constants in such a way so that the value of s we are getting minimum. Okay, so it means it is nothing but mathematically it has become a problem of minimization, and for minimization we are having nothing but two parameters a and b. So what we will be doing, we will be calculating del s divided by del a, and that we will be making equal to 0. Similarly, we will be calculating del s by del b, and that we will be considering equal to 0. So now let me write del s by del a. So del s by del a from here will become nothing but summation I varies from 1 to n into 2 times yi minus axi minus b multiplied by minus of a equal to 0. Okay, so this is nothing but my del s by del a over here. So now what I can do, if I further simplify this, I'll be getting summation I varies from 1 to n and 2 times, so this 2 also I am taking outside because it's common to every quantity. So this summation now I am bringing it with the individual quantities. So summation of yi, okay, and over here we will be having then we will be having minus a times summation of xi, okay, and then we will be having minus b times summation I varies from 1 to n, and outside all of this we are having minus a equal to 0. Okay, so now if we simplify this equation, what we will be finding, nothing but these two values I can take, I can keep or I can take to the other side. So finally I'll be getting that, and this summation over here I from 1 to n will be nothing but equal to n. So I'll be getting n into v plus a times summation of xi equal to nothing but summation of yi. So it means whatever this equation I have written over here, this is nothing but it has come from del s divided by del a equal to 0. Now similarly, if we apply del s by del b equal to 0, we will be finding this as our second equation. Now what we have to do, we have to solve both these equation number 1 and equation number 2 simultaneously, and if we solve simultaneously these equations, we will be finding different values of A and B, and nothing but these values of A and B are selected in such a way so that we are getting the minimum value, or whatever the squares of deviation we are having, sum of squares of deviation, we are getting the least values for that. Okay, so now if we have to find out the standard error associated with this fit, that will be nothing but our standard error. If I define, that will be nothing but equal to summation I varies from 1 to n. Our observed value was yi minus whatever from the fit we are getting the value, that is nothing but equal to axi minus b whole square, and divided by, now I have to take over here n minus 2 and this whole raised to power 1 by 2. So that is nothing but the general definition of standard error we are considering, and in this definition of standard error I am considering over here n minus 2. I am considering this n minus 2 because in our whatever that linear equation we have taken, y cap equal to ax plus b, here we are having two coefficients a and b. So it means two of our data set has been nothing but employed in order to obtain these values of a and b. So that's why these two nothing but our two of the data sets from our overall sample has become redundant. So that's why while we are calculating the standard error in the denominator, we are considering n minus 2. Okay, so this is our standard error in this approximation. Now this method of least squares, in this previous slide I have shown you when we are having only the linear fit. Now we can use higher order polynomial also. So if we consider that we are having a quadratic polynomial, so for quadratic polynomial we will be having y cap as nothing but axi square plus bxi plus c. So for that, if we define the sum of squares of deviation, we will be getting this equation. Now in this quadratic polynomial we are having three coefficients a, b and c. So we have to minimize this s with reference to a, b and c. Then we will be getting these individual equations, and these on further simplifications will be resulting into three set of equations, 1, 2 and 3. Now if we solve these three equations simultaneously, we will be able to find out the values of coefficients a, b and c for the least squares. Okay, so this will nothing but, if we substitute back the values of a, b and c, this will be giving us the closest fit which is defined based on the least squares with our actual experimental data. Okay, so similar to this, we can apply this type of formulation for higher order polynomials as well. Okay, now one important thing you have to remember while we are applying this regression y cap equal to axi plus b or quadratic one, what we are basically doing, we are considering our x as some known quantity, and with reference to that x actually we are trying to relate the value of y. Okay, so nothing but over here what we are having the two-dimensional data set available, x1, x2, x3 and corresponding values as y1, y2, y3. So these x1, y1, nothing but these are our primary measurement variables. So for example, if we consider the flow through a pipe, in flow through a pipe, what will be happening? The rate at which flow is happening inside the pipe, that will be, say, Q is my flow rate, and if inside this pipe we are measuring the pressure drop across the two ends of the pipe, then delta P will be nothing but another measurement quantity which will be depending upon our flow rate of the fluid which is taking place inside the pipe. Okay, so over here what will be happening basically, this Q and delta P will be having certain correlation in between. Okay, so basically what we are trying to do, once we have obtained the experimental data, we are trying to correlate the two different parameters which we have obtained from the experimental observations. Okay, so now for measurement of flow rate also we will be having certain device, and similarly we will be having certain pressure transducer which will be giving us the value of the pressure. Okay, So now while we are applying this type of regression, or while we are using this type of regression, one thing we have to consider that because we are having at present we are considering the two variables. So obviously for this flow rate measurement we will be having certain uncertainty of the device, and similarly for pressure also we will be having certain uncertainty. Now what we have to consider, we have to consider the variable based on which we are calculating the regression as the one which is having the least uncertainty. Okay, so while we are writing y cap equal to a into xi plus v, we are considering that xi is the data set which is having the least uncertainty. If the situation is reversed, that y is having the minimum uncertainty, in that case we have to use the formulation x cap is nothing but equal to a into yi plus v. So this thing you have to always take care of. While we are applying the regression, we have to consider the independent variable as one which is having the least uncertainty, and in case our both the variables are having the same level of uncertainty, then further we have to use further simplifications, or we have to apply further statistical techniques in order to obtain the regression from that data set. Okay, so that we will see in the subsequent parts while we will be dealing with such type of data. But over here, just one thing I would like to highlight, that while we are calculating this regression, we have to take care that nothing but the parameters between which we are using the regression analysis, while selecting the independent parameter or the dependent parameter, we have to consider that the parameter which is having least uncertainty, that should be considered for relating the regression. Okay. Now, obviously, what we are trying to do over here, nothing but whatever the observed data we are having, that we are trying to correlate. So we have to define some correlation coefficient, which will be telling us that how good is our correlation with the observed data set. Okay. So for that, we are having some value r, which defines the correlation coefficient as 1 minus sigma yx square divided by sigma y square and whole raised to power 1 by 2. Okay. So over here, nothing but sigma yx represents the summation of I varies from 1 to n yi minus axi plus b if we are using linear fit whole square divided by we have to consider over here n minus 2 and whole raised to power 1 by 2. Nothing but standard error associated with the correlation in between y and x. And this sigma y is nothing but standard error in the data set of y. So that we will be defining as summation I varies from 1 to n yi minus ym whole square divided by n minus 1 whole power 1 by 2. Okay. So we know over here n minus 1 we are considering when our sample is small. Okay. So this is nothing but this tells the correlation in between our whatever correlated data we are having with that of the observed data. Okay. So this r square, if we take the square of r, that is something which is known as the coefficient of determination. So this is known as coefficient of determination, and value of r square you can see from here is nothing but equal to sigma y square minus sigma yx square divided by sigma y square. So from here you can clearly see that if our value of sigma yx is 0, it means if sigma yx is 0 is nothing but that represents we are having the perfect match in between the observed data and the actual data. Okay, sigma yx will be 0 when this yi and axi plus b will be same. So it means if we are having the perfect match in between the curve whatever we have fitted and our observed data, in that case value of sigma yx will be 0 and value of r square will be equal to 1. So nothing but our r square equal to 1 represents a perfect match. Okay, and when the value will be decreasing from r square equal to 1, we will be having certain deviation in between our correlated data set and the observed data set. Okay, so this is how we can calculate the value of r square using this formulation. Now if we further want to simplify the value of r, particularly for the use if we have to develop some computer program, so this this final algebraic expression you will be getting for obtaining the value of r, okay, in terms of our individual data point values. Okay, now one important point I would like to highlight over here. So while I have defined this sigma yx, I told you that if we are having two coefficients, then we will be doing n minus 1. So similarly, if our say polynomial is nothing but quadratic, in that case what we will be having, we will be having three number of coefficients a, b and c. So in that case, while we will be calculating the standard error, we have to use n minus 3 in the denominator. So it means whatever the order of the polynomial we are having, we have to consider, if say m is the order of the polynomial, so in the denominator we have to consider n minus m plus 1, because if m is the order of the polynomial, we will be having m plus 1 as number of coefficients. Okay, so in the denominator we have to, from our entire data set, we have to actually subtract the number of coefficients. Okay, so that's why in generalized form, if we are having mth order polynomial, so for the estimation of standard error in the denominator, we will be having n minus m plus 1 as the formulation. Clear? So whatever these expressions I have shown over here, this is nothing but the mathematical procedure for uh, determining the correlation in between our observed data set. Okay, but probably you will be able to see, or you might have already seen that if you go to your Excel, Microsoft Excel or MATLAB, many of the tools which are used for post processing the data, in these already these type of mathematical analysis they are actually performing at the back end, and by just clicking on some options or just writing some of the commands, you can finally get the your equations for the best curve fit and the corresponding r square values. Okay, but in actually if you have to calculate all these values, then all these calculations you have to perform. Okay, then let us now consider the multivariable regression analysis. So whatever the regression analysis I have discussed till now, here we were having only the association of the two variables. So one we were considering as the independent and another one as the dependent variable. Now we may have situation where our final output is nothing but the combination of a large number of variables, say b plus m1 x1 plus m2 x2 plus m3 x3, so on up to mn xn. Okay, so in that case what will be happening, so this is nothing but I have used the linear fit, and when we are having the uh, x1 to xn n number of independent variables which are actually affecting our output variable y. Okay, so in that case what we have to do, while we will be defining the sum of squares of deviations, we will be having this formulation, and in this particular case actually this formulation is shown if we are having two different only two independent variables x1 and x2. So in that case what we have to do, we have to minimize this corresponding to coefficient b, coefficient m1 and coefficient m2. Now apart from this, we may have another type of formulation y equal to b times m1 x1 plus m2 x2, so on up to mn xn. Okay, so for this type of correlation, if we are having power law correlation, so for this type of correlations what we can do, we can take the log of both sides, and that will be nothing but making our fit identical to that of a linear fit in our algebraic form. Okay, so this is nothing but the common general procedure is described over here, that how to go for the multiple regression, multivariable regression analysis. So this is the starting procedure and the general procedure. Now in more details, you can practice some of the problem statements which are given in your textbook, and then try to apply this multivariable regression identical to that of the single variable regression as I have shown in the previous slide. Okay, so general formulation is just given over here for your knowledge. Now, while we do the curve fitting, many of the time we are having the tendency that if we consider the large number of data points, or in other words, I should say, if we take the higher order polynomial, we will be having best fit. Okay, but that is something which is not always true. So to demonstrate that one example has been given over here, where these squared points nothing but represents our actual data set, and these data set is actually fitted using different order of polynomials. So when it is fitted using the linear polynomial, so this is our line, particularly this line over here, you can see this is a linear fit, and the equation of linear fit is coming out to be 5.3429 into x minus 3.851. Okay, and corresponding r square value is 0.9124. Then this same data point is also fitted using the second order equation, second order polynomial. You can see this is the second order polynomial fit over here, and the equation of second order polynomial and corresponding r square value is also given. Then when you have fitted it using the third order polynomial, that is given, fourth order polynomial is also given, and fifth order polynomial is also given. So you can see over here that when you have increased the order of the polynomial from second to 5, the second, third and fourth, all these three polynomials has actually closely matched with each other, and to the observed data set, and the corresponding r square values were of the order of 0.98. Okay, and while you have gone from fourth to fifth order polynomial, because you can see clearly that you are having exactly the perfect match, r square is 1, and however if you see the curve, that curve is something like this. Over here you can see. Okay, so this, whatever this curve I am highlighting over here, it is for the fifth order polynomial. Okay, so in this curve you can observe one thing, that the points corresponding to which this curve is actually obtained, you are having the perfect match. So because of this, what you are getting mathematically, you are getting value of r square as 1. However, if you see in between the 2 points, instead of having some smooth fit, you are having some oscillatory fluctuations in your curve fitting. Okay, so that's why this example over here highlights that if we are going for the higher order polynomial fit, it doesn't always ensure that we will be having the good fit. Okay, it may give you r square value close to 1, so that is nothing but that represents that if we are going to predict the value corresponding to our observed values, then we will be having the perfect match. However, if we are going for any value in between our two observations, we will be having fluctuations in our data set. Okay, so which is not good, and which will be conveying some wrong physical interpretation to our final findings from the experiments. Okay, so that's why it is not always recommended that by just obtaining numerically obtaining the value of r square to comment on the goodness of the curve fitting. Rather, it is always advised to plot that whatever the perfect fit or whatever the close fit we are getting, it is advised to plot it on a graph paper and then visually try to observe whether it is giving us in actually it is giving the close fit, or it is leading to some unwanted fluctuations which are not giving the clear reflection of the physical phenomenon which is happening. Okay. And another example is also shown over here. So in this example, nothing but we are having some data set. So this line particularly represents the linear fit, and then over here in these lines, these are nothing but superimposed lines. First for second order polynomial, then for third order polynomial, and then for fourth order polynomial. So you can see that second, third, and fourth order polynomial all are coinciding on a single line, and the corresponding r square values for all is nothing but equal to 1, whereas for linear it was 0.92. Okay, so clearly you can see when you have gone for the third and fourth order polynomial, the coefficients of higher order terms are nothing but very small, which are approaching close to 0. Okay, so these coefficients has come into picture only because of the round off errors, while numerically this has been solved in the computer programs. Okay, however, in actual practice, if you see, your nature of curve shows that your data point nothing but is following only simple equation y equal to x square, because here also you can see when we have taken the quadratic fit, there also the term corresponding to x is having power 3 into 10 to power minus 14, and the constant on the right hand side is also equal to 4 into 10 to power minus 14. So it means clearly we are having the equation as nothing but equal to y equal to x square. Okay, so that's why it is always recommended or advised to first obtain mathematically the expression and then plot it on a graph paper, so that visually we can try to see whether our correlation is showing proper trend or not. Okay. Now, standard deviation of mean, that is something which is a very important topic. So basically what happens when we represent any experimental data, what we do, we take n number of samples, x1, x2, sorry, n number of data points in a sample, x1, x2, x3, so on up to xn. Okay, and for all these n number of samples, what we do, we define some mean value. Okay, xm, and this xm, we say that this is nothing but a data which is true representation of our experimental measurement. Okay, now let us consider that when we have first time performed the experiment, we have obtained the mean value as xm1. Okay, then we have taken second sample on the same day or say on some another day. So in that case, what we have found, the first day we have got the mean value from our experimental observation as xm1. Second day we have got the mean value as xm2. Third day we have got the mean value as xm3, and similarly we have found some distribution for mean values of data. Okay, so it means actually if our population is good enough or if our number of samples are good enough, then irrespective of repeating the number of samples, every time we should get same value of mean. Okay. However, we know that in actual practice that is not always possible, because while we will be doing the taking the samples, we have to limit ourselves because of the cost and time constraints, and we cannot go for the large number of sample points. Okay, so that's why what will be happening, whatever the mean value we are getting, though we are considering that that is the true representation of our actual experimental phenomenon which is happening, but sometimes it may happen that if our experiment is there which is having nature that it is significantly controlled by the environmental or surrounding fluctuations. So in that case, it may happen that our mean value, if we are considering the experiment on different days, it may differ significantly. Okay, so that's why if we are having the large distribution of mean values, here also we can define some standard deviation for the mean value as well, which will be defining or giving us certain confidence for the true representation of experimental phenomena. Okay, so if we consider this large number of samples and define or obtain the different mean values for each data set, and then whatever the values we have obtained, for these values, if we try to apply the statistical calculations, ultimately we'll be finding standard deviation of the mean sigma n, sigma m as nothing but sigma divided by square root of n, where n represents the number of samples and sigma represents the standard deviation of each sample. Okay, so in that case, what we can do, based on the standard deviation of the sample and based on the number of samples, we can define some value of standard deviation for our mean value. Okay. So now, ultimately, what I can specify that my mean value is nothing but having confidence level within the limits of plus minus z times of sigma m. Okay. So this is something which I have told you earlier also. So we are having one table available, and based on this table we can see that if we consider the chances of results which are falling within specified deviation. Okay, so the meaning, first value corresponding to this represent 1 is to 1. 1 is to 1 means if we are taking one sample and out of that one sample it is expected that one sample is nothing but our odd sample. It means it is not falling into the expected result. Then corresponding to second, that if we take the value of xm as nothing but xm plus minus sigma, in that case, if we are considering 2.15 samples, out of these 2.15 samples, we will be having chance that one sample is odd. If we consider the value of xm in a range of plus minus 2 sigma m, then we will be having condition that out of 21 samples, one sample may be odd. And if we consider the value around plus minus 3 sigma, then it will be our observation that if we are considering 369 samples, one sample may go outside this limit of plus minus 3 sigma m. Okay. So this point is nothing but the main idea of defining the standard deviation of the mean is that if we are performing the experiments on different days or in the different samples, if we are obtaining for a single experiment, every time we may find a certain deviation in the value of the mean, which is nothing but the representation of true experimental phenomenon. So over here, by defining this standard deviation for the mean, we are specifying certain band between which our mean value should be actually expected. Okay. Then okay, so I think already I have covered 50 minutes, so I'll stop at this point, and whatever the remaining portions we are having, that I'll try to cover in our next lecture. Okay.